Maker joins the elite club after 6 years in the Dragons' first team. Albert made his debut as a 17-year-old in 2015 and has gone on to make 55 appearances for the club. Now 22, the French international will join Carcassonne and joins former Leeds and Toronto forward Anthony Mullally at the club next season.
Hold on.
Now,
I thought he was teaching people how to surf in Cornwall.
Well, I wouldn't have thought he is necessarily, that sort of part of France is necessarily the best place for a vegan either. So good luck to him.
I think it's a shame that Lucas Albert has not made it at Catalans. He's had so many talented halfbacks that he could have learned from. I feel it's a real shame that he's leaving the club, but hopefully he can develop, getting regular game time, and then maybe come back into Super League reckoning in a couple of years' time. He's still young. Lebanon have appointed former Wallabies coach Michael Cheika,
Checker, I think it is,
as the nation's new head coach. Cheika will lead the Cedars in next year's Rugby League World Cup, which will be hosted in England. The 53-year-old, who was born in Australia to Lebanese parents, coached the Wallabies for 5 years before leaving his role in 2019 after their Rugby Union World Cup campaign. So that's an interesting appointment. Worth noting,
it's a very
wasn't
interesting appointment for someone very unionised, so to speak. Someone who I never knew had any prior knowledge of the sport, and yeah, fair enough. Maybe he did have something in terms of maybe he learnt something from Rayling Castle after all.
I mean, he did. He's clearly got experience at the top level. Maybe he'll get your obscure references. Who knows?
Yeah, there you go. And finally, a rugby league player has been banned for life after attacking a referee. Funny how I end up reading this one out. Geordie Stefanovic, who plays for Rakonicki Nice, has been banned after an incident with a referee, Stefan Semenik, in a match against Lokomotiv Sofia in the Balkan Super League on October the 25th. The Serbian club had travelled to Bulgaria for the contest and ran out comfortable winners, prevailing 86-6 after cementing a 50-0 half-time lead. However, the match ended in controversy when Stefanovic allegedly confronted the referee. A statement from the Serbian Rugby League Federation read, "One of the best young and promising match officials in Serbia was physically attacked in an insidious and reckless way. We will especially protect the match official as well as other officials within our sport with zero tolerance towards violence in sports." There you go.
Absolutely unbelievable. They won the match.
Hate to see it. Yeah,
by 80
exactly.
points. And this reportedly was towards the end of the match as well, or certainly the game was called off at this stage. I mean, first things out of the way, if you were refereeing the game, you would not have let him get the first punch in. We all know that, Tim, so don't worry about that. But absurd that this happened, and perfect response by banning him for life.
Yeah, I mean, so needless. I mean, clearly wasn't ref's fault when you're 80 odd up. I mean, bizarre. Who knows? There's just no words for some people.
Yeah.
But, we don't want people like that in our sport. Jog on. See you later.
Yep, definitely. Farewell to... Not even worth saying his name again. Credit Rugby, Love Rugby League and Total RL and BBC Rugby League for their reporting. As always, we mostly just pick up what they've reported and relay it back in a way that we slip in our views over the top. So, yeah, thanks to those guys for their hard work always on the sport. Thanks for the people who got in their fan views as well on the news. A couple of different people got in touch this week, which is great. You can find links to the Google form for fan views on the episode blog post if you go to superleaguepod.com. We're now going to... it feels like we've already been going long enough, but we're going to now talk about two big matches, the Super League semi-finals. Super League match reviews then, and it was the second week of the playoffs, the semi-finals, and the first game was on Thursday night at the DW Stadium, the first time any rugby has been played there since February.
Wow.
Anyway, it was Wigan versus Hull FC. It was 13-2 to the Warriors at half-time. It finished a wider margin than that, 29-2 at full-time. Chris Kendall was the referee. I'm sure we'll get people talking about him in a bit. Into the stats. 5 tries to none from 7 breaks to 3 and 313 more metres were the stats that underline Wigan's win, helping them overcome 2 more errors. Hull FC were on the wrong side of the tackle success rate battle and the penalty count. Individually, Bevan French, with a try, 2 try assists, 5 tackle busts and 145 metres, celebrated his Rugby League Writers Award, as well as being the Player of the Year for the Wigan Warriors as well at the Club Awards. Zach Hardacre with a try, 7 tackle busts, 134 metres and 2 clean breaks. Ever consistent Liam Farrell, 41 tackles and 128 metres. And Jackson Hastings, in his unfamiliar role of hooker, putting up a massive 54 tackles, 14 of which were marker tackles. For the Black and Whites, Beretta Faremo had 143 metres. He was the only man to go over 100 metres for them. Danny Houghton had 59 tackles, 19 of which were marker tackles. A phenomenal effort for someone coming off the bench. And Joe Cater, 46 tackles and 17 marker tackles, working hard as he has done since whenever he got into the team. August, September.
Yeah. We had lots of fan views about this one, as you'd expect for a semi-final. Of course, who was first? It was Carsten, who said no comment about the refs. Josh Griffin is another Griffin who loses his cool on the pitch. Jake Connor, the best Hull player on the field, and Wigan were just too good after they were brought into the game by Griffin.
Yep. Tom Andrews said, I'd like to congratulate Hull FC on winning absolutely fuck all. Even the team always in your shadow did Wigan over. One more thing to sign my Hull FC bashing season off. Say it with me. Since 1983.
Since 1983. Since 1983.
Look,
like that.
that's got nothing on Warrington, has it? So.
And Warrington's just more funny because of the level of delusion about it every year. The level that it is finally going to be there, yeah. POB, the Vikings, said a good start from Hull, but then it all went wrong. A costly mistake from Griffin and tapping Partington on the head turned the tide. And Wigan grew from strength to strength.
Matt Speakman 20 said, well, we love to disappoint, but we're in another grand final. Love to see all the salt on Twitter, but the truth is, aside from a spirited 20-minute start, it was just a mismatch. I thought Powell would be a big miss, but Hastings was excellent. Rest up and go again next week. Looking for number 6.
JU_EFC78 said, fair play to Wigan, getting to the grand final 2020. Hopefully they win the double. If not, they need to retain the shield and keep it away from St Helens.
White Pie said, a masterclass in how to control and win a playoff game from Wigan in their first home game since March. Solid defence shut down the myths that are Sneed and Connor, while Jackson Hastings put in a Roby-esque performance at hooker in place of Sam Powell. French was quiet in attack and made a couple of uncharacteristic errors, but showed his quality in chasing down Snide to prevent a certain try. Roll on the grand final versus whoever. Confidence from White Pie.
Yeah. Barney at Battenhall Blue said, Hastings was immense, a hooker, tackling everything, closing down those easy yards from the play of the ball, stopping Hull generating any go-forward momentum, going to win the whole thing for Lockers. Hope Saints and Catalan knock 7 bells out of each other tomorrow night.
I don't think Saints knocked many bells out of Catalans, but boy did they...
not looking at the charge sheet, no.
They had the... Oh, I haven't even looked at that, but they had their bells rung. Partly by their own players and their own flaw, but certainly by some fucking... We'll get to that. Joshua's granddad said, tight first 20 minutes, two big Wigan knock-ons leading to 2 Wigan penalties and the game changed. Okay. Wigan simply too savvy, too fast, too combative... But how many times did we hear Kendall shouting not square without once penalising? Yeah, he did do a really good job of telling the players constantly throughout the match that they weren't square, so they didn't get involved in the play, didn't he? It was getting a bit annoying.
Yeah, but I'd rather he was that way around than blowing up every 5 seconds. I mean, I think he's a fantastic ref, to be honest, and fully deserving of the grand final berth.
Well, I don't know. He made 3 mistakes in this match, so it wasn't a flawless performance from him heading into the final of the season, I suppose. We'll talk a bit more about that when we've got through the reviews. Mark Butler said, I will propose that players who pat opponents... Oh, it's your go. Sorry, it's you. Sorry.
Yeah. Mark Butler says, I would propose that players who pat opponents on the head after a knock-on should be put in the stocks. That someone doing this in a game where was the turning point against them is hilarious and delicious. Given how subsequently it went, you can only assume Wigan would have won anyway, but never take the pressure off your opponents by showboating.
Always in Our Shadow said, after Leeds Catalans game, how did Kendall get a game this week, or did Lamb pick his 4-win ref? We spent half the game listening to him shouting not square without ever penalising. Seriously, Wigan does not need such a big helping hand. Controlled aggression in defence took away all the time from Sneyd and Connor. More fluency with the ball in hand gave them all they needed to run out comfortable.
And St David said, proper playoff game this. Hull, the better team in the first half, but a couple of unlucky, dodgy calls crushed their momentum and Wigan took full advantage with 2 cracking tries. An early score off the break killed off an increasingly desperate Hull. Hopefully Saints will make it a Derby Grand Final.
So
shows that we get these in live, doesn't it?
I mean, that's a tease from St David, but we know what happened. I'm sure everyone listening to the show know what happens in the next game we'll talk about. Let's talk a bit about this game first. What stood out for you, Tim?
Well, I mean, I think Liam Farrell's error, giving away a penalty, that stood out for me. Certainly giving away a lot of possession early on, just before the incident.
Yeah, well, I think Hull FC definitely started better than they finished. They got a lucky penalty early on, didn't they? When Marhafen lost control of the ball in the carry, but it was giving us a penalty for a ball strip. I'm not sure how this one was a ball strip, but the one on Jack Hughes in the Warrington Hull FC game the week before was a knock-on, if I'm entirely honest with you. So that was the first mistake that the referee made in the match. But then what Hull FC did wrong then, I think, when Savelio made his break and was kind of close to professionally fouled by Harry Smith, to be honest. If he had anyone behind him to play the ball to, sort of thing, I think, or if the Wigan defenders hadn't got back around Harry Smith, that was a bit cheeky, that one. But Hull took the 2, and they shouldn't have done, because they were physically winning over Wigan at that stage. They'd found an opportunity with their size down that channel where Smith and Gildart were, that they sort of had enough size and power to get down that channel and maybe make something happen at that stage of the game, whilst Wigan were still adjusting, I guess, to some of their positional changes and team changes. But yeah, then Josh Griffin completely changed the match, didn't he, in a way? I mean, yeah, Hull hadn't scored a try by that point, other than one that was correctly ruled out for Mark Sneyd pushing a player over. But yeah.
And just a second before that, as the original mistake happened, I think a lot of this, the actual blame for this, part of it, as well as Griffin, obviously, but part of it should go on Scott Taylor, because his celebration and his going doolally like he'd just won the Challenge Cup, that led to the bubble up of everybody thinking they could celebrate.
Well, yeah, but I actually liked that celebration. I thought that showed passion. It wasn't aimed at the Wigan player who'd made the knock-on. It wasn't aimed at the Wigan players at all. In fact, from Taylor and the people who...
I think that was just him being unprofessional. I think that wound his side up, which then led to the over-exuberance from Griffin. I
disagree. Josh Griffin ran 30 metres, went to Scott Taylor, then just walked past him to find a player who had absolutely no involvement in the play, and didn't just pat him on the head. He made sure he fucking knew his hand was in his air. Griffin, that was premeditated from Griffin, I think. I think he premeditated that he was going to get into Partington when he got a chance.
It all comes from the captain winding everybody up.